Thanks for joining us again this week. The County Council is having its first of two public hearings on the proposed University Boulevard corridor plan this week, and I want to talk about my serious concerns with this plan. In fact, I was so concerned, I went to testify at the public hearing at Blair High School, a first for me as county executive. I'm deeply concerned about the plan in particular, and I'm also concerned about the implications for planning throughout the county. Last week, per county guidelines, I submitted a memo outlining numerous concerns with the plan, and I want to mention some of them now. This plan represents a new approach called corridor planning, a concept introduced in Thrive Montgomery 2050. Thrive 2050 was a general plan that was considered during the pandemic and approved in 2022. Basically, it was done under a rock. While Thrive 2050 created this corridor concept, residents were told that the details would be worked out through the master plan process. University Boulevard corridor plan is the first of the Thrive corridors. There are 8 more identified in Thrive. They are coming all around the county. Let me lay out some of the concerns with this approach. First, corridor planning is based on a false premise that we need to zone for more housing. This is the biggest flaw with what they're doing. We have existing approved master plans that already provide zoning capacity for 120,000 units, enough for 300,000 residents. That number doesn't reflect a 100% build out of capacity, so there's even more potential beyond that. Forecasted growth, on the other hand, for 2050 is about 200,000 residents over the next 25 years, meaning capacity already exceeds demand. I'm not making these numbers up. In October 2019, the executive director of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments confirmed, quote, "The results of this initial assessment confirmed that the region can accommodate within existing comprehensive plans and zoning significantly more housing than the additional 100,000 units called for in the board's directives." In April, the planning directors reported that they had further determined that all of the additional housing could be accommodated within the region's activity centers and around planned network of high-capacity transit areas. Given that Montgomery County does not need additional zoning to accommodate future residents, this is a plan to let developers go after existing neighborhoods by creating a false sense that there's nowhere else left to develop. This argument started a few years ago when then Planning Chair Casey Anderson started talking about the percent of land in the county that was zoned single family, and then he leapt to the false conclusion that with so little land left, we had to resort to rezoning. When I heard it back then, I knew where this was going. Planning went on to produce a Beyond TOD document, which was odd because we're not close to building out the planned transit-oriented development that we've already put in place. If this was coming from a layperson, I could believe it was an honest mistake. Coming from a planning official, however, makes it a deliberate distortion. And that distortion has been parroted by the planning board and by some council members in pushing these plans. Why is it a distortion? Because they know full well that we've planned for this growth. One thing that does set us apart from some other counties in the state is that we have planned for the long-term future. And they don't even bother to tell you that the housing projection for 2030 actually dropped by almost 6,000 units or 16,000 units, depending on what you're looking at in terms of their numbers, in their updated forecast from a couple of years ago. That would disrupt their narrative if you knew that. This plan will merely shift development away from planned areas like Wheaton and other activity centers. Upzoning additional areas now won't bring more people. It will only change the location of development and draw density away from transit centers like Wheaton, which were supposed to be job and housing centers aligned with smart growth. Furthermore, this is the opposite of affordable housing. It incentivizes redevelopment of existing naturally occurring affordable housing. Upzoning inflates land prices and undermines affordable housing further. Real estate people have been clear that new housing in existing neighborhoods will be priced at the same or higher than existing housing, confirmed by a study that Park and Planning itself did for East Silver Spring. This is not about benefiting single-family homeowners by giving them the option to increase the density on their lots. In order to execute the planning board's vision, this will not be created by hundreds of homeowners rebuilding their property. What this is really about is turning single-family neighborhoods into the new greenfields for townhouse developers who have bemoaned the lack of greenfield availability for new development. Opening up single-family neighborhoods would enable them to buy up blocks of housing and pay more than current market price so they can build their houses and add commercial uses. If current residents along the corridor had wanted urban density, they would have chosen different places to live. And for as long as I've been engaged in this, which is like 4 decades, people have picked single-family neighborhoods as a good place to raise their families. Now we're telling people that there's no guarantee that your neighborhood that you want to live in and that you chose will remain that neighborhood. And not because of what the residents want, but because of what the planners want. Other jurisdictions, Minneapolis, Arlington, and other cities around the country have done serious rezoning, and some have eliminated single-family zones. But they did this because they realized that to accommodate future growth, they didn't have the capacity within their existing land use plans. Most of them were built out. Arlington and Minneapolis are largely built out. Montgomery County is different. As I've shown already, we already have the zoning and capacity to accommodate future growth. There is no increase in affordable housing in this. The existing area is already an affordable area with renters and single-family homes. People who live on or near University Boulevard, many in naturally occurring affordable homes, have come out to voice their opposition, but their concerns have been dismissed. We can see displacement of renters and the loss of cherished neighborhood serving businesses as naturally affordable housing is replaced. This plan does not even have a policy of no net loss of affordable housing. Second, we've lost community-based planning. Past master plans relied on advisory boards that were made up of residents, businesses, and developers who worked together with staff support from Park and Planning to create master plans and our sector plans. There was significant community involvement, including business input, and recommendations were voted on by these boards. Imagine being able to vote on things, because you're not allowed to do that now. Planning staff served to inform, not to dictate outcomes, which is what they're doing now. Current approach dismisses residents and the communities feel ignored and alienated. And the rhetoric around this demonizes single-family neighborhoods. Some have gone so far as to blame it for the county's segregated past. The problem is that segregation here was rooted in land covenants to block the sale or rental of property to blacks and Jewish people. That helped lead to the decline of the percent of the population of the county that was black between 1870 and 1960. But by 1967, when discriminatory covenants were banned in Montgomery County, the black population began growing, and they happily moved into single-family neighborhoods from which they were previously excluded. We integrated, and it didn't require zoning to accomplish that. Number 3, corridor plans ignore the broader scope of master plans that were outlined in Thrive: schools, parks, transportation, traffic, parking, and other amenities and facilities. The narrow boundaries of the University Boulevard corridor plan prevent meaningful analysis of infrastructure overcrowding or park needs. It is a significant departure, and frankly, it's antithetical to the way the recommendations of Thrive Montgomery 2050 itself. This new corridor plan approach seems solely focused on producing as much housing as possible by rezoning single-family neighborhoods without adequately addressing other essential elements. The corridor plans pretend that the main street serving the community isn't part of the community. University Boulevard is present in several existing master plans. All this artifice has done is prevent the community from having a role in shaping the major artery that it relies on. This is just another example of Park and Planning bending over backwards to cut people out of our processes. The council should not validate this approach. The plan is based on a bus rapid transit line that is not even in the planning stages. I support BRT. In fact, I came up with the original map for BRT in 2008. But right now, it is a line on a map, and there is no funding in the 6-year capital budget, even for planning, much less construction. We don't know when it will be built, and it's not a high priority line compared to the other lines in the plan. We cannot and should not encourage immediate upzoning and increased density based on an unknown future plan. In the past, development was tied to the infrastructure that went with it. It was called staging. The council got rid of that 10 years ago. Moreover, the BRT was primarily meant to move people via transit. Stops along the road were meant to be for riders coming from the adjacent neighborhoods. They are not stations in the sense that the planning department is envisioning increasing density around every stop. That was never the intention of BRT. The reality is that the net effect will be to add more traffic, not less traffic to the road, worsening congestion rather than improving it. Let me give you an example. If you add 4,000 potential new workers into this part of the corridor and you capture 20% on BRT, which would be a lot, that would mean that you'd be picking up 800 riders, but 3,200 cars. That same development in activity centers and downtowns, as was originally planned, provides more local job opportunities that don't require driving anywhere, and provides more options to move in different directions toward work, which is not just linearly along University Boulevard. There is no real traffic analysis here. Currently, long lines back up along Colesville Road for entrance onto the Beltway. Some of the plan's proposed changes could drastically exacerbate the situation. The only discussion of the impact on existing traffic is in something called Appendix F, which is not attached or even referenced in the draft itself, so residents would have no idea that this is there. Furthermore, the narrow arbitrary boundaries of the plan do not include enough of the road network to assess the consequences of changes to University Boulevard and other roads. The plan proposes realignment of streets and connections of streets within neighborhoods. This includes getting rid of dead ends and connecting the neighborhoods and the streets on either side of the dead ends. The realignments would necessitate several new signaled intersections along University Boulevard, while the proposed street connections would convert dead-end streets into through streets conducive to more cut-through traffic. The impacts of these changes are not analyzed or addressed, not even in the appendix. The plan's zoning directly conflicts with the recently passed ZTA 25-02. Residents are confused by the different housing proposals. The University Boulevard Corridor Plan proposes rezoning the predominantly R60, R90, and R200 neighborhoods to the CRN zone. The plan goes beyond the ZTA with rezoning that reaches beyond the corridor fronting properties and bifurcates established neighborhoods, leaving some sections in an existing master plan area and moving other sections into the University Boulevard Corridor Plan. The map we're sharing shows how many different neighborhoods are partially affected. Full impacts are not considered. The environment. This plan will inevitably result in reduced tree coverage and increased imperviousness, contrary to our climate change goals. The Department of Environmental Protection points out that increasing allowed density and the intensity of development will almost certainly result in a decrease in tree canopy and an increase in impervious surfaces. It means an increased heat island effect, reducing absorption of stormwater and greater flooding risks, directly contrary to our climate change goals. When planning staff presented the plan to the council yesterday, they did not mention the lack of funding for BRT. Instead, they oddly enough shifted their focus on the safety of pedestrians, bikers, and rollers. If that is the focus, rezoning has nothing to do with it. There is no question that improving safety on University Boulevard is a top priority. It's ranked high on the state's list of serious injury crashes. And it's the only county road included in the state's pedestrian action plan that will recommend safety enhancements this fall. Therefore, if public safety on the roadway is an issue, the state is already addressing the issue, and you've lost the rationale for this plan. There is a better way to achieve our housing goals, more housing types and more affordable housing by revising master plans that were zoned for high densities that have never been built out, or some of the other master plans which may be building out more slowly than anticipated. But it's important to note that no one has done any analysis of factors that may be slowing housing growth in the county, such as limited job growth, which has limited demand, the economic situation, including tariffs and high interest rates, or the potential impact of job losses due to Trump's policies and reductions in population due to Trump's efforts to remove our immigrant population, which could have major impacts on our communities and on apartment vacancies. We can and we must do better. Most residents are supportive of efforts to increase housing affordability, but they want us to find a way to get there without adding to our problems. Exacerbating traffic jams, overcrowding our schools, damaging our environment, or overtaxing county services and infrastructure is not the smart way to move forward. It might be great for the few developers who would benefit from this, but that's not what planning's supposed to be about. There is a better way to plan. It starts with rejecting the University Boulevard Corridor Plan and the corridor planning concept in general. It's a big mistake based on a false premise. We need to return to a more inclusive planning process that goes through careful review and consideration, and most importantly, incorporates a meaningful role for the community. Monday marks the start of Hispanic Heritage Month. Our Hispanic community, which makes up more than 21% of Montgomery County families from El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, Honduras, and beyond, make our county stronger. Normally, it's a joyous 30 days of celebrating the contributions of the community, with events across the county in our libraries, rec centers, and public spaces. This year, there is a cloud of fear, obviously, and concern over federal immigration policies that have led to the ramp-up of ICE activity and the over-policing of Black and brown communities. Montgomery County, we've noticed the impact. Events that routinely draw big crowds, like the Salvadoran Festival that had been held at the Ag Fairgrounds in the county, are on the shelf this year. Some fear that they can't go to work or send their kids to school without being targeted by federal immigration enforcement. As a county, we're working closely with our schools and community partners to share important information with communities so they can continue to use critical services. Now more than ever, it is important to help them understand their rights and children continue to go to school. No child should miss critical classroom time because of the fear that is the reality that many families are facing now. The targeted attacks against Hispanic communities just because they look Latino or speak Spanish angers me, and is a disservice to the values and traditions this country was founded on. The federal government policy that equates looking brown and having a manual labor job means you're illegal. I grew up at a time when openly hating someone was based on their race was perfectly okay, apparently. Many schools were segregated, including in Montgomery County, and there was a fierce fight to keep it that way. There are a lot of similarities between these backward racist viewpoints and the way the federal government is treating our Black and brown communities today. They want to convince the nation that they are the enemy, and that is wrong. We stand with our neighbors in this struggle to be treated fairly. Our Hispanic communities have had a positive impact in our community for many years. They hold jobs in our county, contribute to the local tax revenues, and have spending power. Montgomery County is the most diverse county in the United States, and we're not looking to change that. One message I hope they hear is that we thank them for all they bring to our community. Don't lose hope. Don't let fear win. We're all in this together. Finally, the assertion that Trump is cutting off these communities from funds by taxpayers who aren't Hispanic is actually factually inaccurate. The immigrant workers have state and federal taxes deducted from their paychecks. If they own homes, we get their taxes. If they rent, we're getting taxes from the property through the rentals owners. It's ironic because Trump should actually love this situation because the workers that are paying taxes aren't eligible to receive support from many programs already because of their immigration status. In short, they're paying taxes, yet in many cases unable to use services. We will continue our work to help them feel safe and valued. In the realm of really good news, I do have some great news to share about our ongoing efforts to ensure safe and healthy housing for everyone in Montgomery County. Our latest troubled property report for FY25 shows a 69% decrease in the total number of units on the list we compile every year, dropping from 7,269 units in FY24 to just 2,264 units this past year. This means thousands more of our residents are living in safer conditions. We've also seen a 57% decrease in units on the at-risk list, going from 6,375 to 2,740 units this year, which is an incredible amount of progress. Our program is giving more residents better living conditions as a direct result of our focused strategies. Our Department of Housing and Community Affairs has stepped up their enforcement efforts and cracked down on housing code violations. New tools we put in place have also helped a lot, like our rent stabilization law, which sets limits on rent increases for properties with violations. This has given landlords a strong incentive to fix problems faster and to get into compliance. And let's not forget the new tenant protections from Bill 625 passed in April, which further strengthen consumer protections for our residents. These measures have given enforcement efforts more teeth. Our DHCA code enforcement team completed more than 15,000 mandated inspections of multifamily rental units. Through their work, they identified and ensured correction of critical health and safety issues like pests, mold, and inadequate fire and carbon monoxide alarms. We've also noticed that property owners are responding faster to the citations. They're addressing violations much sooner than we've seen in the past, causing the rate of housing code citations for failure to comply to drop by more than half. The law changes mean property owners are now more likely to comply and fix violations once they're cited. The best situation would be to not have violations at all. The health and safety of Montgomery County residents remains my top priority. While these results are something to celebrate, our commitment will not waver. We will keep working diligently to correct housing code violations and protect all of the well-being of all our residents across the county. I'm encouraged that more landlords are coming into compliance, and I hope this is a trend that eventually gets us to zero problems. That would be nice. September has been designated National Preparedness Month, the time to emphasize the importance of developing a prepared and resilient community. But even with that special distinction for this month, just yesterday FEMA announced it will close its National Preparedness Toolkit feature, which was used to help outline organized processes for the whole community to follow. Emergencies come in all forms, from floods and snowstorms to high winds and power outages. During the summer heat wave, it was important for people to be prepared for scorching temperatures. Our county departments activated internal procedures and followed extreme temperature plans to protect lives and ensure a coordinated response. The county helps every family be prepared for planned or unplanned events. We share key information through Alert Montgomery about weather changes, traffic alerts, and more. We also encourage families to build emergency kits and develop plans for family members that cover when people are stuck inside or driven from their homes. The Montgomery County Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security will host the free Ready Montgomery Emergency Preparedness and Public Safety Fair on Saturday, September 13th. It will take place from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Wheaton Local Park in Silver Spring, and will feature emergency preparedness talks, CPR and AED training, and bleeding control demonstrations. If you can't make it, I encourage you to share the important messages being shared this month about being prepared through the county's social media channels. National Preparedness Month reminds us of the importance of individual awareness, community resources, and strong interagency collaboration. The public's preparedness is one key to our collective resilience during an emergency. Despite federal government uncertainty and rapid changes in vaccine policy, Maryland has taken steps to ensure continued vaccine access for its residents. Yesterday, Governor Westmore emphasized the health, safety, and well-being of Marylanders are the state's North Star, and they will do everything possible to ensure that life-saving vaccines and medicines are available to the people who need them. Governor Moore signed a bill passed by lawmakers to ensure that insurance providers, including Medicaid and private insurers, continue to cover the cost of all vaccines recommended by the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices as of December 31st, 2024. That's before things went off the rails. This legislation became effective June 1st, 2025, and is designed to protect against the withdrawal of vaccine coverage for a range of illnesses, not just COVID. Last year, another change expanded pharmacists' vaccine authority. This allows pharmacists to administer flu and COVID vaccines without a prescription to anyone 3 years and older. This expansion makes vaccines more widely available statewide, as pharmacists are authorized to actually give the vaccine in accordance with Maryland law. Here in Montgomery County, we're committed to careful and evidence-based decision-making for patient safety and disease prevention. We will hold true to this value even as federal vaccine guidance standards and sources become uncertain. School and immunization requirements for children have not changed. Families are encouraged to consult their pediatrician to ensure children are up to date on all recommended vaccines. Our free vaccination program for the uninsured will continue through September. And for more information, visit govaxmoco.com. The Office of Human Rights and the Committee Against Hate and Violence will host the annual Friendship Picnic at Wheaton Regional Park this Sunday from noon to 5 p.m. This is always a special event because it brings together people from every culture, background, and faith. Sharing food and spending time together, building new relationships, helps strengthen the bonds that make Montgomery County such a welcoming and inclusive place. You don't need to bring anything, just an appetite. It's impossible to ignore what happens around the globe. War, power struggles, and famine are felt here through heartache and pain. But in Montgomery County, we continue to work hard to take a different path. When the world feels divided, we come together to show unity, to practice peace, to stand against hate. Our vigilance and solidarity remain as important as ever. Events like the picnic remind us that we are stronger when we celebrate our diversity and learn from one another. They help us build the trust and understanding we need to carry forward. I want to thank our partners who make this possible: the Office of Community Partnerships, the Faith Community Advisory Group, and Montgomery Parks. I also want to recognize the Montgomery County Police Department, Fire and Rescue Services, and the Black Physicians Network for their contributions to this year's gathering. This is truly a team effort involving more than a dozen county departments and initiatives supported this year by Eagle Bank. I look forward to seeing you there as we continue building a community rooted in respect, compassion, and unity. That's a wrap for today. I hope you're all hanging in there. I know it's not easy. Hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll be back again next week. Take care.